my wife and I, we are not the types that just give whatever to our kids. We want to make sure that our kids understand and appreciate the value of hard work. I mean, literally, when we had that conversation about hitting the reset button, we made a decision, just like it has with most investors. It started with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki book. I'm a big reader. I read a lot of books. But it started with that one. And after that point, we were spending anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day after, I'm talking in the evenings, kids would go to bed and we'd get to work.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and click subscribe. For those of you listening on a podcast platform, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform that is and leave us a rating if you can. The more likes, ratings, and subscriptions that we get, the more we can spread the message and grow our community. So we also have a free Facebook group. It's called the Average Joe Finances Network. Check us out, join the group, join the community, ask questions, and become a part of the team. All of our other social media accounts are listed in our flow page, and we have them in the video or podcast description below. All right. Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today we're on with Kyle Robertson from Joe Capital Group, and he's been investing in real estate since 2008. And he started by renting out his primary residence during the Great Recession. He's going to share his story about how he's done in real estate since then. And pretty excited to have you on, Kyle. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. So, hey, I'd like to kick things off by asking a little bit about you. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and share your story.
Absolutely. I'm 36 years old. I got a wife and 3 awesome kids. We live in Oregon, and I've lived here pretty much the majority of my life. I spent some of my school age in the Midwest in Missouri. And that time in particular is kind of what drew me to that section of the United States whenever I got to my the investing portion of my life. Yeah, we invest in real estate. We started kind of by accident, I guess, more than anything. We started with a single family house that I'd bought even before I got married. And it was way back in 2004, and held on to that, got married, in 2008, which is just happened to be when the recession was going on. So I couldn't sell that house even if I wanted to, but my wife and I wanted to have our own place. So we decided to rent it, and that was our first, I guess, foray into the land of land of being a landlord. And we rented that thing out for till about 2014, mainly because the market was just so terrible here in Oregon. We couldn't sell it, so we kept that thing. Only made about $100 a month off of it. Never really got me excited. I was ready to unload it at any time, and finally, the opportunity presented itself when a guy I knew decided he wanted to sell some storage units. And I was always interested in storage units, mini storage in particular. So decided to see what we could do about selling the house, wondering if, the thing could maybe gain some value. Maybe we could sell it and get some equity out and move it into the storage units. Met with a real estate broker, and I bought that thing for $92,000 in 2004, which was a lot of money in 2004 in Oregon. And they told me that I could probably get right around $150,000 in 2014. So I was pretty happy with that. We decided that's a great move for us to go ahead and put it on the market and move on to something commercial, which we did, and sold the thing and with multiple offers on the first day. Ended up getting a little bit more than what we had expected to, and bought these storage units. And we kind of realized at that point, there's really something to this real estate gig. We had no training. I never read a book about real estate investing. Never gone to any seminars, never listened to podcasts, nothing. I was just like, all right, well, everybody says get into real estate, so I guess that's what I ought to do. Let's go get into real estate. So we started looking around at some other residential opportunities. We ended up owning the storage units for about 3 years. And another guy that was local to where I live stopped in one day when I was cleaning out a unit and said, hey, we're trying to expand our own storage business. Are you interested in selling it? So we said, yeah, I guess anything's for sale, the typical anything's for sale for the right price answer. So he made us an offer that we couldn't refuse, and we ended up selling it to him. We purchased that and 2014 for $165,000, and we sold it in 2017 for $325,000. So we did pretty well. We just about doubled our money in 3 years, and at that point we were hooked. We were like, oh man, this is, if there is such a thing as a get rich quick scheme, maybe this is it. And of course we learned down the road there's really no such thing as get rich quick, but this was a great way to utilize things like equity and appreciation and things of that nature to expand our financial stability, I guess. We ended up taking that money, bought a couple of duplexes in Lebanon where I live, and a total of 4 doors. We always said we'd never go back to residential because we didn't want to be landlords anymore. But we decided to buy these duplexes and hired a local property manager to take care of them for us. And it was super easy. I mean, it was, we were surprised at the fact that they kept writing us checks every month and we didn't have to do anything, so that we were then hooked by using with the idea of using property managers, that they were well worth their weight in gold. And the duplexes we bought were value add, which means that we do a lot of repairs during the time of ownership to add value, or forced appreciation is another way to put that. And we ended up putting about $20,000 per door. So 20, 40, 60, $80,000 into the 2 properties. And see, we bought those in 2017 for $219,000 each, 2 buildings. And we sold them at the beginning of this year. We sold one for $342 and the other one for $325. So obviously at this point we're like, okay, I think we probably know what we're doing by this point. Let's see if we can kind of blow this up a little bit. And we moved all of our money to the Midwest and got into multifamily apartment investing and never really looked back.
All right. That's fantastic. Hang on. So that's a fantastic story, man. Just the way you got started off. So back in 2004, you said, when you bought your first property, right? And you kind of just fell into being a landlord by accident. And it's funny because you were saying that you were only making about $100 a month off of your first rental property. Well, so I was in a similar situation. I bought my first property in 2007. I was 22 at the time, just turned 22, or was about to turn 22. Yeah, actually, I was just about to turn 22 when I bought my first property. And my wife and I, we lived there for a while until I got orders to go back to Norfolk, Virginia. This was out in Waynesboro, Virginia, out near Charlottesville in the Shenandoah Valley. So we bought that property out there, and we bought it in 2007. Yeah, I spent $250 on it. Well, we all know what happened in 2008 and 2009. So needless to say, ouch.
Yeah.
I had that property on the market for about 9 months before I decided to rent it out. So that's what I did. And it is not a renter friendly area. So I got lucky because I had a friend of mine who was still stationed there that needed a bigger place. And I said, hey man, please rent my house. So a buddy of mine rented my house, and I couldn't charge him what my mortgage was because my mortgage was a lot higher than what rent goes for in the area.
Yeah,
so absolutely. I was losing $300 a month on that property. So that kind of really hurt. That was my first taste as being a landlord, and I wasn't too happy about it. Wasn't too thrilled. So it took a little while before I got back into it. But yeah, it's funny because just that time frame, that was what a wild time to buy a property and just your first property or just get into real estate around that time frame is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it was super, super ugly. And at that time, what I was doing before 2008 is I was a real estate broker. And the only reason I got into that was because my dad owned a real estate company here local. And we decided we wanted to work together. And so that's actually where my real estate education came from, was just being a broker. I didn't own any property before 2004, but, I essentially lost my job in 2008, there was, even though I was still a real estate broker, there was no clients, it was
right.
the Great Recession, which is the housing bubble crash, like you said. And it was disgusting the way that, so many people around the country struggled for the next 3 years. It wasn't a quick recovery by any means. It was super, super slow. And I took the opportunity to go back to school and get a degree and was able to get into a different profession, luckily. But, a lot of people weren't quite that lucky.
Yeah, that's tough. And you're pretty fortunate that you were able to do that. Uh, and you still turned it back around, right? You got past the hurdle back then when the Great Recession happened. And, fast forward a little bit to the one property you bought, you said in 2008, right? For 92,000. Is that how much it was? Or was that the one in 2004?
No, right. The one in 2004. Yeah. That was just a single family home. I lived in it for 4 years. So I bought it in
Okay.
04 as primary residence. And then 2008, when that happened, we got married. My wife and I went off and bought another house and had to rent that one because we couldn't sell it.
Okay. And then that other house, you sold that one for 150,000, or was that the first house in 2004?
Yeah, that was the one in 2004. Yeah. So that was our rental because we ended up, that was the rental. The one I keep saying the rental, that was the rental, our very first one. And we sold that one in 2008 for 150. And we actually didn't expect it to be worth anywhere near that much. This is
especially during that time.
Yeah, well, by this time it was recovering. This was about 2014 when we sold the rental that I bought in 2004. So in the 10 years of ownership that I had that, it went from $92,000 purchase price to $150,000 sales price over that 10-year period. And we expected maybe 20 or 30,000 bucks that we would have made off of that thing. When you told us that it was 150, that was super shocking because I live in a coastal state. Oregon, California, Washington, and even the East Coast states are all fairly similar where you got appreciation and then you've got cash flow. Well, we get a lot of appreciation, we don't get so much cash flow.
Right.
And because the property prices are so inflated on these coastal states, I'm sure Hawaii is the same way. The prices for these things are just so high. There's you don't usually get you only get one or the other. You don't usually get both, which if you could, we'd all be rich, but it just doesn't work that way. So you kind of take it and you leave it. If you can catch these, I call them peaks and valleys. You get the peak when the market's good, you get the valley when the market's bad. If you can buy when it's low and then you can just ride that up, because typically your rents appreciate just like your property prices do, then that's best case scenario.
Yeah, it really depends on the market. I'm kind of fortunate with my rental property back in Virginia. It actually appreciated quite well, as well as cash flows quite well. It's a duplex, and I think a lot of the appreciation right now is just due to the lack of small multifamily that's available. So it's kind of getting a little inflated. So selling it right now is a good time for me to make that move. I was debating between selling that property or taking out like a HELOC or something, or just doing like a cash out refinance. But I think I'm going to let that one go and just move on to something else. But I want to talk about what happened where you started. So you sold that house for $150,000. You then turned around and you took that cash that you had, right? You used that as a down payment for a storage unit that you bought. Is that correct? You paid $165 for that back in 2014. And then you sold that for $325,000 in 2017. So in 3 years, you doubled your money.
Yeah. And, I definitely don't want to let your listeners think that this is, I talked about get rich quick schemes earlier. I think they are pretty much all schemes. I kind of got lucky on some of these things because I caught a recession on the uptick. That's just me being black and white with you. You really, I'm under the belief that you make your money when you buy a place, not when you sell it. And I managed to buy it whenever we were recovering from a pretty nasty time in our history when, being the Great Recession. So yes, I did manage to double my money in 3 years. I didn't do anything to the place except just manage it.
Oh, wow.
That one, we got lucky because the type of financing we did there was an owner carry. And for those of you who aren't familiar with commercial financing, it's pretty tough to get loans on commercial loans for businesses that you don't have any history in. I had no history in storage units, done it before, and I don't think a bank was going to touch me. I didn't even actually try. I actually went straight to the seller who I knew, and I said, "Hey, are you interested in carrying the contract?" That's just an owner carrying a note. Essentially, they become the bank. I give them a down payment, and then I make all my payments directly to them for whatever term we agree on. For us, we agreed on a 30-year term, which is unheard of. He wanted the cash flow because he was retiring.
Yeah.
So he wanted me to pay him every day for the rest of his life, whatever it was that we agreed upon. I only had to put down $10,000. And for $165,000 property, that's less than 10%. So And the moral of that story is if you are looking at doing owner financing, you know, you can always go up, but you can't always start with a lower offer. I didn't think he'd ever take my $10,000 down payment offer, but he did. And we made that money back in like 4 months. And then after that, it was just, you know, our return was infinite after that. So it was
that's
pretty
fantastic.
phenomenal, but you can't do it till you try. Right. So yeah, we kept that for 3 years. We realized that the only reason we really sold it was, number one, we got a great offer. Number two, I want a second job. I had a full-time W-2 job, still do, that I enjoy. So I didn't really want to, I didn't want to have a second one. I wanted to spend some time at home.
Yeah, that's the dream right there, though, the way you had that set up. So essentially that's the same thing, you know, in a residential property as seller financing, right? So
Yes.
he carried his old loan on the property, and you basically took over payments and you put 10,000 down.
Yeah, you bet. It was
That's crazy.
I can talk specific numbers if you wanted to talk specifics, but we put 10,000 down, bought it for 165. He carried the note for a 30-year term. So that means it was a contract for 30 years, just like your single family homes that everybody buys.
Right.
Typically on commercial financing, they're 5 years. And sometimes if you get lucky, you'll get a 10-year fixed. I think the interest rate at that time, he gave me a great deal, which was 6%. You know, it's not a great deal today, but it was back when I bought this in 2014. So you got like 6%. I think our payments were around $1,100 a month, give or take. But the thing was bringing in almost $3,500 a month. So, I mean, I was killing it on cash flow. And in hindsight, that is probably the one place I regret selling. I wish I'd kept it. But if I didn't sell it, then I wouldn't have moved on to residential. And if I hadn't moved on to residential, then I wouldn't have moved on to the multifamily commercial, which is apartment complexes. And I feel like we're doing a lot more now than what that probably could have provided us.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're just progressing with each new experience, right? So you got a little taste for that commercial for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're back in commercial, but now it's commercial residential, which is a little bit different. And we'll get into that. But that's, man, you're paying $1,100 a month and he's carrying the note, and it's cash. Now it was cash flowing for $3,500.
No, that was so take expenses off of that. We had $1,100. It was like $1,150 for the mortgage that we paid to him. And then we had about $150 a month electrical bill and about a $75 a month water runoff bill. And then other than that, we had nothing. I mean, we had no phone line, we had no internet there. It was a smaller unit, so there was only about 50 units there. You know, it wasn't like this 200-300 unit facility where I could have retired.
Yeah.
This was more of like a side gig thing. And smaller dollars, 150,000 is pretty cheap for a storage unit. So we didn't have anybody on site, but I invested in that in the town where I live. So it was really easy for me to go down there and like cut somebody's lock off, or sometimes the gate controller would get stuck and people couldn't get out. So they were trapped inside the facility, you know. Yeah, it was kind of interesting, but we didn't like getting those calls at 1 o'clock in the morning. Help, I can't get out of your gate. You know, it's like, well, what are you doing in there anyways? We're closed, you know, so. But yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that sounds like just a good gig to get into. I was looking at self-storage for a little while too. But right now it's probably not going to be something I pursue at this time, because I'm looking more at the future of actually getting into commercial residential. So I think we should kind of carry on into that. And so from selling the storage unit, you know, was your next step, did you go right into the commercial residential, and what did you do? What did you do to get there?
Yeah, from the storage units, we sold those, and we instantly bought those 2 duplexes that sat side by side here local. And those were the value adds where we put about 20 grand per door into those. And after we held on to those for a couple of years, actually until the beginning of this year, we had a lot of equity essentially, because, you know, in Oregon, those peaks and valleys, this was a big peak that we were in. I felt like we were in a bubble. You know, a lot of people talk about bubbles in real estate. I felt like we were heading that direction. So I told my wife, it's time to get out of this super volatile market, because if our valley is super deep, whenever this bubble pops, we're going to lose money on these, or have to keep them for you never really lose money till you sell, but we have to keep them for a long time to recover these values. So we decided to sell them. Sold both of them. Well, sold one of them instantly. The other one spent about 30 days on the market, and then sold that one. We took that money from the duplexes, and that's when we started getting pretty serious about purchasing, larger multifamily buildings. We knew we couldn't do it in Oregon because things just don't cash flow so well here. You get a 12 unit apartment complex here, those are $2 million, give or take, depending on where they're located and conditions. So we decided to look in the South, and we actually tried to look everywhere. We did Wyoming, we looked in Chicago, Illinois, we looked in Kansas and Missouri and Oklahoma, and we finally settled on what I think is honestly the sweet spot of the South, which is Arkansas. Everybody kind of is like, Arkansas, what in the world would you invest in Arkansas for? And it's funny because it's honestly one of the most beautiful states. It's hotter than hell in the summertime, but they got the greatest people. It really is down home South type living. The people there have always been so hospitable to us when we've gone over there. But we ended up finding a little place in Central Arkansas. Hot Springs is the name of the town. It's a tourist destination. They have ancient bathhouses there that kind of brings a lot of the people from the South and the Midwest in. So we started looking around, found this 12-unit apartment building. We're like, man, we should definitely investigate this. And when we assess properties, we use Brandon Turner's method from Bigger Pockets. It's called the Foursquare method. And for your listeners, any of you guys that are looking to figure out how in the world am I supposed to, assess a building or a multifamily property to figure out if it's a good deal or not, get on YouTube, Google Brandon Turner Foursquare method. And that's the video that I watched a couple of years ago. And I've probably based the majority of my portfolio and investing career on that particular method. It's very easy. It's one single page. You can assess an entire property as long as you can get all your questions answered in 5 minutes and tell whether or not you want to buy it. We ended up buying that 12-plex. We paid $570,000 for it for 12 units, every door rented for $600 a month. All utilities were paid by the tenants who lived there, so I paid none. So essentially, if you do the math, that's $7,200 of rent. Our mortgage is right around $2,000 a month. And we do have an electrical bill for the lights that are in the exterior. But that thing cash flows like crazy. We could never cash flow anything like that here locally in Oregon. So we bought that. We also bought a 4-plex in Arkansas. A 4-plex there is like $215,000, and those are also at $600 a door. So the better purchase on those was the 12-plex. That one cash flows quite well. Excuse me. So, and a part that I didn't really touch on very much is before we started in real estate, my wife and I worked, my day job is as a firefighter, and here in Oregon. And, we were driving along one day. I remember it really well. We owned the storage units at that point, and it didn't matter what I did. I had a beautiful wife, great kids, great job, but for some reason I was just really super unhappy. I couldn't figure out what it was. I didn't feel fulfilled. I felt like I needed to do something to change my life to keep things sustainable. And so I told my wife one day, we were driving, and I said, you ever just wanted to kind of hit the reset button? You ever just wanted to just sell everything that you have? Just sell it all. I'm talking sell our house, sell our cars, sell everything, and just start over. Just figure out, was there a different type of lifestyle we could be living that would make us happy? And my wife, bless her, she's so incredibly supportive. She's like, all right, let's do it. And we literally did that. We sold everything. We ended up having to buy another car, of course, because you can't live with a family of 5 without a car. But we did it, and that's where we took the money. People call this reckless, and they're probably right. I don't recommend it, but we actually sold our primary residence at that time. We made about right around $225,000 or $230,000 of equity that we got from the sale of that. Bought a fifth wheel, and decided to go buy more apartments. And so at that point, we owned a 12-plex and a 4-plex in Arkansas. We located an 18-unit in Arkansas, bought that. We located a 16-unit in Northeast Tennessee, bought that. And so that brought us up to a total of 50 doors, which is where we're at today, and we still don't own a house.
Oh, wow.
So we managed to buy enough stuff that I was able to replace my income at the fire department. And so that allowed us to actually start looking for a piece of property where we can build a house that we want. And so, yeah, that's where we're at today.
That's fantastic. So like that right there is you got yourself to the point where you hit that reset button. You got 50 units now, and it essentially replaced your income, right? So you are now at a point where you're financially free, and you can go wherever you want and live wherever you want because there's nothing tying you down, right? So that's, are you renting right now, or are you staying in one of your apartments?
It's embarrassing to say this, but we purchased a fifth wheel when we sold our house. We bought a brand new one, and which I highly recommend if anybody decides to go this direction. If you want to get super hyper aggressive in real estate and you decide to use your own equity on your own house, go buy a new trailer, fifth wheel, whatever you want to buy, because you're going to need that warranty that comes along with it. And we did. We ended up living in that for a year. Right now we're renting from my dad.
Okay.
Which is the embarrassing part, right? 36 years old with a wife and 3 kids, and I'm renting from my dad. But we are under contract.
And you have 50 doors.
And we have 50.
Let's not leave that part out. Nothing
we
to
joke
be
about this all the
about.
time. My coworkers give me all kinds of crap. They're always like, "So, how is it living with your dad?" I was like, I call him my roommate. All right, he's my roommate. But anyways, essentially, we wrote an offer on a place last week, which is just a little single family home, real similar to that one we bought back in 2004. And that's going to be kind of our stopgap until we find the piece of property we want to build on. We close on that one in December. So we'll actually finally get our own place again. So,
right on.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations finding that stopgap property. And so are you looking still in Oregon to settle down somewhere and find a piece of land and build are you going to build like your forever home there? Like this is it, the retirement home?
I think so. We actually hired a designer, and we designed a house that we just customized top to bottom. And it was like a 6-month process because we're so indecisive, so we spent about 6 months with her, meeting every couple of weeks, changing floor plans and doing this, that, and the other. So to answer your question, we'll stay in Oregon. My wife's family's here. My family's not, but we can, we spend a lot of time with her family, and I still kind of like my job. So I think I tell everybody I'm only one bad day away from retirement. So you just, at this point, we've replaced my income. I guess if we wanted to, we could leave, but I don't know. I don't know that we're going to do that. We talked about getting a second home, maybe even in Arkansas, because we really like Arkansas a lot, especially Hot Springs. So we talked about doing that, and that way we could satisfy that desire to be in different places at different times and, just kind of take vacations a little more often.
Let's take a quick break from today's episode to hear from our show sponsors. Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Mike Cav with Average Joe Finances. We're living in some pretty tough times right now, and if you don't have life insurance, you should probably get it. You need to protect yourself, protect your family, and protect what you own. Check out the link below in the show notes or in the video description. Hey, what's going on everybody? It's Mike Cav from Average Joe Finances. Just want to talk to you today about Prep Agent. If you're interested in learning how to become a real estate agent and being able to pass the test on your first try, check out Prep Agent. Check out the link below in the show notes or in the video description. Welcome back, everybody. Let's get back into it.
You're listening to the Average Joe Finances Podcast. Whether it's single or multifamily real estate, the stock market, or side hustles, we discuss it all. Strap in and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, it's good. So you'll have that second home and in a location closer to where you have a lot of your rental property. So, worst case scenario is if you need to get out there for a little bit and you need somewhere to stay, you've already got that, locked in. So that's good. So now you are still working for the fire department, correct?
Yeah. Yep. Still work full time. I'm an A shifter. My job title is a lieutenant. So, I promoted, started out as a firefighter, went up to an engineer, and now I work as a lieutenant. I've been a lieutenant for about 3 years.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm a lieutenant too, but in the Navy. I'm actually looking at dropping my retirement paperwork here shortly. I'm at a little over 18 years, so I think I'm going to punch out at 20 and collect my retirement check, and then let the real estate investments supplement my income while I continue doing my thing as a realtor full time outside of the Navy. And of course, the podcast and the Average Joe Finances website. That's being able to jump into that full time, I think, is going to be super fun, and I'm really excited about that. So normally I like to ask, what is it that you're doing on your journey to financial freedom? But it seems like you're at a point where you're essentially financially free. Like you've met that goal. And I also like to ask, how long have you been doing what you're doing here in real estate? So we've kind of hit all those wickets. But there's one thing that I really want to know is, throughout all of this from 2004, from the beginnings to where you are now, what do you enjoy most about how you're investing and what your strategies are?
Well, that's a great question. There's actually a lot of them, and but so I won't bore you with all of them, but I'll give you kind of the big ones. The fact that we have created something that didn't exist before, and when I say that, I'm talking about something that we own that is generational wealth for my family. I think that's our number one. The fact that, yes, these buildings existed before I purchased them, but now we have created a business, and that business is, we call it Joe Capital Group, and that's essentially, I guess, the parent company of all the LLCs that we've created, because we put each property into an LLC. And Joe Capital Group didn't exist beforehand. We don't really do anything else with it. We don't syndicate with it. We don't sell anything with it. It exists just in that purpose. But we can take this, when I'm old and decrepit, not able to take care of myself anymore, something I can give to my kids, and say, I worked my ass off my entire life, and this is the culmination of everything that my wife or that your mother and I have ever done, and I want to give this to you and hope that you can keep it and make it bigger and make it better. Leave these places that we go into better than the way you found them. Leave them better than the way your mom and I found them, and just keep trying to do even baby steps to make the world a little bit better place. And that's probably my number one. My number two is, I didn't feel it whenever I was a realtor. I actually hated being a realtor. No offense. I know you're a realtor. I'm not the right personality to be a real estate broker. I'm not as friendly as I probably could be with the phone calls that used to come in at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Hey, I need to see this house right now, and if you don't show it to me, I'm going to use another realtor. Crap. Okay, I guess I got to go, honey. I got to go show a house real quick. And that was a lifestyle that I just personally didn't want to live. But I have learned since I started purchasing and investing that I can honestly say I love real estate, and I love real estate in the way that I can take a building, throw some money at it, and money is just money. It's a tool, but I can create a nice place to live for somebody and take the best care of them I could possibly do. We're not slumlords. We spend a lot of money. We probably get a much lesser return than a lot of people do, because we always make sure that these places are going to have long-term tenants. I would rather have a lesser return and no vacancy than to have a really good return, but vacancy being high, because vacancy is what kills your gains in the first place. So if you take care of your customers, and your tenants are your customers, and really treat them as best you can, answer their questions, do the repairs that they ask for, and you're going to make people happy, and you're going to get a good reputation, and it makes life a heck of a lot easier whenever you're making contacts too. And I'm a social guy. I enjoy meeting new people, and we've got realtors in 10 different states that are, that we try to stay in contact with as often as possible, and just kind of build that network. Because in real estate, if you don't have a team, then you're not going to operate if you're doing a lot of stuff out of state.
Yeah. So that's a key thing right there, building a team, right? So I know before I bought my property back in Virginia, that was the first thing I made sure I had. I had a good realtor, I had a property manager, and I had a good contractor, right? Just to make sure I could take care of any repairs that might be required. Because if you get into this game first and you think that, well, I'll just buy the properties first and then build my team, you can be making a grave mistake. So it's good to have that support and have that group put together, building that entire team. So the number one thing that you said there, and I think a lot of people can really relate to wanting to build generational wealth for their family, especially any of my listeners that have children. This is one of those things that you buy these properties and you get all this appreciation, you pay it down over your lifetime. I mean, hopefully you live a nice long life, and by the time you go, all these properties are paid and your kids just absorb this cash flow, right? This cash machine. And, being able to pass something like that down and know that when you leave this world, your family's taken care of is probably more important than anything. And that's kind of the same reason. That's kind of where my head's at as well. I think we're kind of like-minded when it comes to a lot of this stuff. And, I really liked what you talked about with ensuring that you keep these properties nice, for your tenants and your residents, and building those relationships with them. So you have, long-term tenants that are staying in your property, keeping it nice and livable for them and not being a slumlord. I mean, that's really important, because you're going to have less of a turnover rate. And because each time you have turnover, that's, a month or two that you're not getting cash flow from that particular unit. So, you're doing it the smart way, not the, I want to cash flow as fast as I can way, and then, kind of just dump it. You're doing it the right way, which is fantastic. And I definitely commend you for everything that you've done so far. I mean, you built a small little empire in just a small amount of time, all starting with pressing that reset button. So congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Doing good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And, it's, back to the generational wealth thing real quick. And my wife and I, we are not the types that just give whatever to our kids. We want to make sure that our kids understand and appreciate the value of hard work. I mean, literally, when we had that conversation about hitting the reset button, we made a decision, just like it has with most investors. It started with the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki book. And I'm a big reader. I read a lot of books. But it started with that one. And after that point, we were spending anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day after, I'm talking in the evenings. Kids would go to bed and we'd get to work. We'd open up the Realtor app. We'd open up Zillow. We'd open up all these different, Facebook Marketplace, and we'd start shopping, and we'd look and we'd learn and we'd talk and we'd network. And so as far as the generational wealth thing goes, my kids know that they're not going to be, I'm not going to die and they're going to get some giant pile of cash. I told my kids, I was like, you know what? I'm not leaving you any cash. I'm going to spend every single dollar that I've ever made before I die, but I will leave you our investments. And so the investments is going to be your responsibility to make sure that you're going to keep those things. They're a business. We are literally giving you a business that could hopefully, steer the three of you toward a successful future. And, we've got a lot more thinking to do on how we would actually accomplish that, but I told my wife, I said, we work our butts off. I've got a full-time job and still a full-time job with real estate, and we're going to spend every dollar. We're going to travel the world. We're going to buy houses. We're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. And then my kids can take it from there.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. You can't just hand them the keys to the car and say, go have at it. And they got to train, they got to get their license first. They got to learn. So yeah, that's doing it the right way, man. So besides real estate, are there any other asset classes that you and your wife invest in?
Not my wife. I do. I play in the stock market, and honestly, I'm not going to sit here and sound like a stock guru. Have adopted the philosophy that I invest in what I believe in. And I research the crap out of the companies that I do invest in. But beyond that, I'm not as big as I should be on things like reading financial statements, listening to the call-ins for reports and reporting and whatnot at the end of the quarters. What I do is I find companies that I love and believe in, and then I'll invest in those, and I just kind of hope for the best. And I'll continue to watch and pay attention to what their earnings look like. But, I can use Tesla for an example. I bought Tesla back when they were like $170. This was in 2017 or something like that.
Good on you.
And I just kept it because I love it, and I follow Elon Musk a lot in all of his different companies. And the second his next company hits the market, I'll be throwing in probably an irresponsible amount of money at that one too, just because I really think the guy, he knows what he's doing. He's proved that with all of his companies that he's been successful with. And I don't know. I think it's awesome. So I find companies like that I see a future with, and I do a lot of research first on those particular companies, and I'll do the investing. But I actually stopped. I stopped throwing money. We have 457Bs, which is a retirement account similar to a 401k. Mm-hmm. For the first 10 years of my career, I was putting $1,500 a month away in that, just like most people do. But I don't have a lot of confidence so much in the typical traditional retirement accounts, like the retirement scenarios of our grandparents. They're not. This is a different world. We have to retire differently. We have to have financial literacy in order to gain financial independence. It's a necessity. And so for some people who are passive, it's a good way to go, but just put some money away in a 401 or a 457 or a 403, whatever. You can do that and it'll work. But the thing is you're probably saving for a loss because you're not going to get as big of a return. There's other asset classes that you can invest in that they're riskier. Don't get me wrong. But you got to understand when you're throwing money at a 401k, that's still investing in the stock market. It's going to do what the stock market's doing. But you
can get risky with those too, with your 401k, depending on how you're investing it.
Oh, for sure. And I was not that risky guy with my 457. I was in a target date retirement. I was like, I'll put it out to the riskiest one they would give, which is like a 2050 retirement or something. And I'm not going to be working at 2050 by any means, but that was the riskiest option that I had. And I threw it at that and said, if something happens in the next 30 years, big deal. I'll still be here. It'll recover and I'll be fine. But then, I started messing with real estate and I'm getting these 15, 20, 25% returns or more. And I'm sitting here thinking, this is silly. I'm throwing $1,500 a month at something that's not going to give me much of, maybe 10% a year tops on good years. So I stopped. I didn't take any money out. I left it in there, but I stopped putting $1,500 a month away. And I now put that towards investing in real estate. Yeah,
no, that's a way to do it. So, 401ks, IRAs, any type of retirement account, like there's nothing wrong with it. It just shouldn't be your only avenue, right? It shouldn't be the only thing that you're, putting your eggs all in one basket, right? You could probably do that with real estate. You can invest just in real estate and be fine. But it is good to kind of diversify where you're putting your money and where you're holding your assets, right? So, no, that's great.
And like you said, there's actually one. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no worries.
But as far as diversifying goes, you can diversify in real estate. So you think about different asset classes. You could also invest in, like for me, storage units, and then you can invest in an apartment building, and then you can get a single family house. Single family houses are very recession resistant for the most part, because everybody wants to live by themselves. They don't like it's not as attractive to a tenant as an apartment isn't as attractive to a tenant as a single family home is. And you can also diversify in locations. So I was talking about, Oregon and California does the peaks and valleys thing with bubbles. But Arkansas really doesn't, they don't appreciate as fast, maybe up to 3% a year on the property values. But man, they are just steady as a rock. They do this all the way across, right through a recession. You might get a little tiny dip. But for the most part, the Midwest and the southern states, they're pretty recession resistant. They're not immune by any means, but they can handle a lot more. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, they can handle a lot more trouble than say these coastal states do. And so if you do get into real estate, diversify your locations. You can go to tourist destinations, you can go to beach destinations, you can go to Airbnb destinations, and there's all kinds of different stuff you can do there.
Absolutely. You could buy out here in Hawaii and come hit me up. I'll help you out. But,
absolutely.
Actually that's a great point. So one of the things that I appreciate about where I live in Hawaii is appreciation, right? So it actually, the property values out here are, almost double every 10 years, your property value. So, that's pretty amazing. So I plan on holding on to my primary residence out here as long as I possibly can, because it's going to be a cash cow in the future, right? So when I do sell this or do a cash out refinance to get some of my money back, it's going to give me a leg up for future investments. So that's the way I'm looking at it right now. Or if my wife and I decide to hit the reset button and start everything over, it'll be a good way to get started. So, because we're looking at when we retire, we've been talking about buying a sailboat. We want to get like a catamaran, a sailing catamaran, and just sail around the world. So we'll see.
Oh man, that sounds awesome. And I tell you what, the reset button thing, it sounds crazy, but it's weird because it was fun in a weird way. It was risky. It was us taking everything that we were worth, taking every dollar that we had minus, a bit of a nest egg, not much, but enough to keep us through if something bad happened. But it was exciting in a way that, here I am, a married guy with 3 young kids under the age of 10, and I'm going to go out there and do something that some people would consider really stupid, which is just throw all of our money at some random places we haven't even seen before, and see if it makes me a return. Now, obviously, I simplified it a little bit. We did go out and look at all but one of them before we bought them. But it lets you know that there's so much more to life than just waking up every day, knowing what you're going to do, going to work, coming home, eating dinner, going to bed, waking, you know what I mean? You get into this cycle and mentally you start to feel like there's nothing left. There's no excitement left. We're just sitting here, ready, just waiting to die. I mean, there was nothing left in my life. And I'm the kind of guy that needs a little bit of excitement. Running into burning buildings is great. Don't get me wrong. It can give you a nice little flare of adrenaline, but then it's over and you get that adrenaline dump and you're like, this isn't sustainable. This is, I need something that really kind of fires my rockets a little bit. And I didn't have it at that time. And I do now. And I get excited about real estate. And I love talking to people about real estate, and especially people who feel stuck the way I did, because I've been there. And it's such an awful feeling to just feel like there's just nothing you can do. This is the cards you were dealt, and this is what you get to do for the rest of your life, Kyle. You're screwed. And I hated that. And so I decided, you know what, I'm not going to be that victim mentality and say, there's nothing I can do. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something different and see where the cards fall. And that's what we did. And it was the best decision I think we've ever made.
Yeah. That probably was the best decision you guys ever made, because you got yourselves into something that's so much more than what you had before. And it's just amazing. And, the way I look at it is, if I'm going to talk to my wife about this, because, actually, or maybe she shouldn't watch this episode, because she's going to start getting some ideas.
Don't mention my name. Yeah, don't mention my name.
Well, she watches sometimes, I think, maybe. No, but
yeah, right.
But I look at that as like, you guys basically started a new adventure together. It wasn't, you sold everything you owned, right? But now you had this cash. You had something to work with. It wasn't like you were homeless at the time, even though, I guess technically you were, right? But you went out and you got to start over on this whole new adventure. And it's, I don't know how long you've been married. Well, you said you got married in 2008, right? So you've been married a little while.
Years.
So, just being able to do something like that and just, it's something new and something fresh. It just keeps everything invigorating. I think for a relationship, that's pretty important too. So that's a good way to do it. I know, like, I was stationed in Virginia for 15 years, right? When I finally was able to get orders out of Virginia and come here to Hawaii, man, my wife was so excited and the entire family was so excited. And just for something new, like just get out of Virginia. Even though we moved around in Virginia, we were still in the same spot, right? And then coming out here,
right.
Something new, there's always something to do, like outdoors. And COVID kind of put a hamper on all of that, but it's been an awesome experience. So I can definitely somewhat relate to what you did there. And I think that's awesome. I'm really enjoying.
Sorry. Yeah. We're sitting here thinking, who knows, maybe in 10 years from now, we'll hit the reset button again and just sell all of our apartments. And I don't know, maybe you go take up underwater basket weaving. I have no idea. The world's kind of our oyster at this point. So this kind of showed us that no matter what it is or where we're at in life and what point we're at, as long as we do it together, there's always an out and there's always a way to change. You're not stuck, and that was the big issue with me, is that I felt like I was stuck. And I think we've proven to each other that that's not the case. We're in control of our lives. So.
Yeah. And what the biggest thing is that you did too is you took a risk, right? And a lot of people, they look at real estate. They don't want to get into real estate because they think it's too risky or anything like that. You can't get anywhere in life without some type of risk. You can go outside and walk across the street and get hit by a car. There's risk going outside. You can go outside and get sunburn and get cancer. I mean, there's so many different things that there's risk involved in life. So you took a risk, but you took a calculated risk, right? Kind of knew what you wanted to do. And you were able to turn something, great out of that. And I think that's the one of the big takeaways is, no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be some type of risk involved, but you need to be able to get past that, get over that, and just take that leap of faith. Now, don't go into things blindly, right? But there's always going to be that small risk involved in no matter what you do in life. So, yeah.
Probably the riskiest thing you could possibly do is not educate yourself on financial literacy. People talk about, it's risky to do these things, but it's far riskier not to take control of your own future. I mean, I'm not going to obviously name any names, but I've got people who are close to me who are very, very risk adverse, and that's okay. You when you get to a certain age, you have to be risk adverse. You're not, you're not going to want to take these giant risks when you're, 5 years away from retirement, because you may end up adding 10 or 15 years to your retirement time. Nobody wants to do that. I've tried to explain, and I always try to explain when I speak with people about financial literacy in general, that, you can try to prepare for the worst all your life. And if the worst is going to happen, it's going to happen. It's what you've done to prepare for it, and if you just take a moment to learn, pick up a book, read what it takes to be a real estate investor, read what it takes to be a stock investor, take control of your financial life, your retirement, just in general. And you really, really kind of decrease that risk significantly. You can never get rid of risk. It just doesn't happen. Just like you were saying, anything is risky. But you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your family to make sure that your future is secure, as best as you can make it.
Yeah. And financial literacy is definitely important. And, one of the things you mentioned before you even got into this, you said that you never read a book or listened to a podcast about anything financial or real estate related, but now you said you're in the books all the time. So what's your favorite book right now regarding real estate?
Well, the one that lit the fire, I already told you, and I think I'd say probably 75% of today's real estate investors who've been investing, I guess, in the last 20 years would probably tell you Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. If you haven't read it yet, then go ahead and
gotta read that book.
You did. Mine looks similar to that, except it's got ripped out pages, and I got a bunch of little Post-it notes, and I think I've got 3 different copies.
That's good.
I love that thing because it will really kind of light that fire. It talks a lot about liabilities and assets and what exactly an asset is. It really kind of makes the wheels start to turn, and it helped me realize that even though I was just a lowly fireman, I wasn't I was middle income. Probably making somewhere around $60,000 a year, give or take. So that's average throughout the U.S. that I could become an investor. And everybody thinks, oh, I don't make enough money to do that. Well, nobody's really, there are people that are born rich, but the self-made people are the ones that take control. And anyways, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, David. So I'm into apartments. And so I kind of gravitate toward multifamily books. David Lindahl, we purchased an 18-unit complex about a month ago, which is are you familiar with the BRRRR method? BRRRR?
Very much.
Buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, right? It's a very popular real estate investment strategy for single family homes. A lot of people get their start doing the BRRRR method. We decided to do something stupid and buy an 18-unit complex that required BRRRR. And so that's what we're in the middle of right now. We're only a month into it, but we hired an awesome contractor. Commercial BRRRR, yeah. So David Green has a BRRRR book. I would really highly recommend. It's a Bigger Pockets book. If you haven't read it yet, for your listeners, make sure you pick that up. But David Lindahl, it's called Multifamily Millions. His book is specifically on repositioning or refinancing, or not refinancing, excuse me, rehabbing apartment complexes. And that's what this one is. It's called Multifamily Millions by David Lindahl. That's kind of become my real estate Bible here lately. I read it through and started reading it through a second time because it's so much actionable advice. Excuse me. So much actionable advice about picking contractors and picking property managers and real estate brokers and this, that, and the other. It's just a phenomenal book. But before you get to that, you got to read the Long Distance Real Estate Investing book by David Green. Also, he's the same guy that wrote the BRRRR book. Before you buy something out of state, he's got so many awesome pointers on how to purchase, locate, source real estate brokers, all these things that just seem like they're so overwhelming for out-of-state real estate investing. He covers them in that book. So make sure you pick that one up. I've got 2 big ones that are non-real estate related that really kind of helped change my life. One of them is called The Miracle Morning by Hala Elrod. If you haven't read that one yet, please pick it up. Honestly, if you can just, he puts step by step how he starts his day, what he does in the mornings. It's called Miracle Morning for a reason. And he gives you essentially pointers on how to start your day off the right way to make the rest of your day just phenomenal. Follow his directions. They will help you. And the other one is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale. I don't know if it's Carnegie or Carnegie, but I call him Carnegie.
Carnegie, yeah.
That's
a good book.
Fantastic book. It's a really, really good book. I think that needs to be in everybody's repertoire. It really kind of help you learn how to deal with people in general, just how to listen, how to not be that person. And this is my major fault, is I interrupt people all the time. I got to stop doing that. He really helped me just by reading that, is, let people finish what they're saying before you spew whatever you got in your mind out. So, self-help books, although there's a taboo about people talking about them, just talk about, the self-help books have been one of the most influential things on me, because it really kind of opens up your eyes to who you are and helps you become a better person. So it's been, those are my favorites.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. That's fantastic. And, just your whole story, and just going from where you started at humble beginnings to where you are now, still humble about it. Right. And still working full time and doing your thing. And you're really good with, especially with being a firefighter, with somehow adding that, like, or not acronyms, but different words to whatever you're talking about. So you had mentioned, when running in and, fighting a fire, gets the adrenaline flowing and can get you to flare up, right? Or something that would light your rocket fuel or light your rocket fire or whatever. So I noticed that you were getting all those in there. So that's good stuff.
People call me long-winded. I guess that's part of it. Sometimes I don't know when to stop talking. So
hey, that's perfectly fine. And as long as the conversation's flowing and it's flowing good, that's what it's all about. And that's one of the things I enjoy most about doing the podcast. It's kind of selfish for me, because I take this as an opportunity to really sit down and talk with my guests and really learn about what they're doing. And I've got this little notebook with every guest I bring on, I've read a whole bunch of notes and just different things that they recommend and do. And I research it and I check it out myself. And sometimes I don't steal, but I take a little bit of their, what they're doing and apply it to how I'm doing my thing too. So it's, that's one of the things I really enjoy about this. And hey, I really appreciate you coming on, Kyle. And one of the things I definitely want to ask you is, for my listeners here, where can they find more information about you? Do you have a website or social media you'd like to share?
We don't have a website. We don't really advertise ourselves a whole lot, but here in about the last couple of months, we created a Facebook page. So you can find us on Facebook just by going to the search bar. You can look up Joe Capital Investments USA, and Joe is just JOE. And the way we came up with that is the first initial of my 3 kids' first name. So JOE is Jack, Olivia, and Ella. Awesome. I don't really know anybody named Joe, so that was the best way for us to come up with a name. So Joe Capital Investments and Joe Capital Investments USA. There's a couple of Joe Capital Investments on there, but our picture is black with a little bit of orange on it. So maybe that'll help you if there's more than one of them. You're trying to figure out which is the right page.
Well, we'll make sure we get the proper link in the show notes as well, to make it a little easier for people to find you.
Awesome.
So, hey, well, again, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate having you. And thanks again. The Average Joe Finances podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Do not use this for any real estate or investment making decisions. All views by myself or our guests are solely our own and do not reflect the opinion of our employers.